Decision on private medical colleges will be taken following discussions with all parties. Statement from the President. Presidential Commission of Inquiry commences probe into the bond scam. Hydropower generation drops to 8%. Consumers requested to use electricity sparingly. SLFP Youth Front requests the government to take a decision on those who engage in businesses while serving as state officials.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Krishan Devasagayam.
And I'm Nicola Zoiza.
Let's start off with a look at our top story for this evening.
President Maithripala Sirisena says he would take a decision on the issue regarding the private universities in the country, taking into consideration the best interests of the country.
President Maithripala Sirisena made these remarks during a meeting with the Site and Parents Association and Dr. Neville Fernando regarding the prevailing issues on private universities in the country at the President's official residence yesterday. Dr. Neville Fernando as well as members of the Site and Parents Association expressed their views on this issue, and the student representatives also conveyed their ideas and proposals during the meeting. The President further said that he will take the ideas presented by all parties when resolving the matters. He added that he would pay special attention to the concerns expressed by the Sri Lankan student community. The President has already discussed the matter with the Government Medical Officers Association, the Government Dental Surgeons Association, as well as the University Students' Unions.
The United National Party convened a media briefing at its headquarters, Sirikota, today.
Students inside makeshift tents demonstrate for days opposite the medical faculties. These students are not employed. There is a group that coerces them to engage in these acts and funds them. They would require millions to come here in a motorcade with the expenses for food and fuel. These students have become the mallet for the political and business ideals. If they can prey on these students, we as the National Youth Front are prepared to step onto the streets to fight for the rights of the youth.
අගමැතිතුමා කිව්වේ බොහොම තර්ජනාත්මක විදිහට කිව්වේ බලාගෙනයි මේව නවතන්නවොත් අපි පාරේදී බලා ගන්නවා. ඔබලා මොකද්ද මේ කුමන්ත්‍රණය කරමින් යන්නේ? අපි කවදාවත් කුමන්ත්‍රණය කරන්නේ.
We will never conspire, but you need to remember one thing. The National Youth Front has the might to stand against cruel politicians who prey on the youth and their future. We are prepared to step onto the streets on behalf of them.
The Presidential Commission of Inquiry, appointed to investigate the controversial bond transactions involving perpetual treasuries, recorded a statement from Central Bank Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy this morning.
The three-member commission appointed by President Maithripala Sirisena includes Supreme Court Judge K.T. Chitrasiri, President Counsel and Supreme Court Judge Prasanna Sujiva Jayabodhana, and retired Deputy Auditor General Kandaswamy Velipule. During the hearing, Central Bank Governor Indrajit Kumaraswamy was questioned on the role and task of the Central Bank, its objectives, the structure of departments and technical committees, procedures involved in debt management and the bond market. Questions were also raised about the relevancy of a meeting held on a day of a bond auction on the 27th of February 2015. Governor Kumaraswamy responded by saying that he could only give a definite answer after consulting his staff. During proceedings, lawyers questioned the governor as to who decides whether the bonds should be offered in a public auction or as direct placement. Governor Kumaraswamy said, since he took office, he has not gotten involved in the process. The Central Bank Governor was uncertain as to who had decided the method of offering bonds, but went on to say that it may have been decided by the Domestic Debt Management Committee or the Monetary Board. The governor also told the commission that bond auctions were held in an ad hoc manner and that he is working on putting in place a more systematic process to offer treasury bonds. The commission concluded today's session at 1:45 p.m. The Central Bank Governor is due to appear before the commission tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna convened a media briefing today.
මහා බැංකු වංචාවට
Perpetual Treasuries, which is responsible for the central bank scam, has filed a case at the Court of Appeal against the Monetary Board. They have filed a case citing that the action taken against them by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and the Monetary Board are illegal. The responsibility of the Central Bank is solely vested with the Prime Minister. We are not pleased by this situation. The person who is now in charge of the Monetary Board and the Central Bank is the very persons who fostered this scam, supported it and reaped benefits from it. Therefore, we have no faith as to whether the proper legal action will be taken to protect the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, because the governor of the Central Bank will have to act on the orders of the Prime Minister. It happened previously as well. This situation prevails. This case might lead to disaster. Therefore, we request President Maithripala Sirisena to take direct control over the Central Bank. He has all the legal right to do so.
ජනාධිපතිවරයා යටතට පවරා ගන්න ඕනේ. එතුමාට එසේ කිරීමට අවශ්‍ය සියලුම නීතිමය බලතල තියෙනවා.
Views were expressed regarding the Google Loon project on the Face the Nation program aired last night, as well as at a media briefing convened by the SLFP Youth Front today.
So the most valuable spectrum currently is 900 megahertz spectrum, where most of us are using it to get our phone calls today, even today. Then 700 is currently used for terrestrial broadcasting, television broadcasting. France,
what does it really mean?
which is a rich country, which auctioned it in 2015, they raised $3 billion from the auction. $3 billion from the auction. So the comparable numbers that I have are probably for Taiwan, which is still a more prosperous country, and there it's about 1 million for 1 megahertz. So if you just think we'll get prices similar to Taiwan, it should be about 10 million for the 10 megahertz that Google is asking for. If you release it, we will be able to give our people very high quality data connectivity on one side, and the government will get a ton of money on the other side. Way more than what you get for Hambantota.
What Google's stated intention and what Google and Facebook wants to do are probably two different things. The idea is you put your, it's like a camel entering a tent. You put your nose in first, you get the connectivity, and then you say, well, why can't we provide this to all of the world or all of Sri Lanka? I think what you have to understand is these are companies that make commercial decisions. And sometimes charity is a form of a commercial decision where you use charity to enter a market or enter a position, and then you expand it into a business opportunity. That happens worldwide. Let's look at it this way. Let's say TRC says, okay, 700 bandwidth is only going to be used by TRC for all the internet, all the phone companies in Sri Lanka. And we're going to charge you per usage. That's a rational, from a TRC point of view, it's a rational use of scarce resources. Make sure everyone gets the resources, and since you have one contiguous bandwidth, you're better able to actually utilize the bandwidth.
Why is it that Chamath is so interested about Sri Lanka? If you were Chamath, how would you look at it? Okay, let's say you are in that position.
If I was in that position, what I would do is, honestly, I would think of a way to monetize this position, this spectrum.
I have immediately called for the resignation of the CEO of ICTA. Why? Where is the transparency that we have thought of? Where is the transparency? We are not the Rajapaksa regime. The difficulty we had in bringing this government to power, and the promise that we made to public, was that we are going to be very transparent. These type of things will never happen. These are the promises, pledges that we gave to the people. People are still waiting for good governance. Actually, if you take the president, he never wanted to interfere with the administration of the government. He gave everybody a free hand. He gave up his powers also to parliament and thought that everything will go smooth. But no, you saw from, as you said, starting from the bond issue, then the Horana tire factory, then the Volkswagen coming in, right? Everything the government is messing up it in style, right? And the people are worried as to, is this the government that we voted for? So in Sri Lanka, we have always seen a person coming for a trial with an understanding. After which the tender is called, which is tailor-made to the person who came for the trial. This is how it happens in Sri Lanka, usually. Every tender has been that. So this was also going to be tailor-made to that company, but unfortunately it failed.
It may be the president, the prime minister, a cabinet minister or some institution. Emphasis on the word some. We have now identified groups of officials attached to certain institutions. They are using their official privileges with the aim of carrying out certain businesses. As an example, let us see the Google Loon project carried out by ICTA. Those frequencies were to be given to a private company to be controlled, and this affected the media institutions in our country, especially the private media institutions. Some public representatives and state officials are responsible for such actions without even the knowledge of the hierarchy of the government. Who gets a bad name because of their actions? It is the incumbent government, the leader of the country and the subject minister. This is not good for the future of the country. At this point of time, we especially draw the attention of the government. Please identify such corrupt officials and carry out investigations against them and then mete out necessary legal action for what they have done. What is the proper procedure to select the CEO of ICTA? In the selection process, did the board of directors follow a competitive and fair procedure? At which level was approval obtained? Did the ministry secretary approve the instructions issued by the CEO on how to call for bids?
Civil activists and media personnel believe that extensive investigations into the assault of journalist Keith Noya would expose the details on other attacks on media, including the assassination of the late Lasantha Wickrematunga. The 5 army officers who were arrested over the abduction and assault on Keith Noya were placed in remand custody until the 3rd of March. Now, yesterday, the Sri Lanka Army announced that the soldiers had been interdicted.
On the 22nd of May 2008, journalist Keith Noya, attached to the Nation newspaper, was abducted by an armed group and was later released after being assaulted. A major and 4 army personnel who were serving in a military intelligence unit out of Maradana during that time period were arrested. Presenting facts before the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court, police said it investigated many telephone conversations in relation to the incident. Statements obtained from over 20 witnesses have also been submitted to court. The Criminal Investigations Department informed court that before the abduction of Keith Noya, the suspects were seen at the University of Colombo, a florist in Boralla and a supermarket complex in Vellavatta. Detectives pointed out that those were locations visited by Keith Noya before his abduction. After being abducted from close to his residence, Keith Noya had been taken to Dompe. Investigations centering the evidence provided by Keith Noya had revealed that he was being held at a house obtained under the name of an individual who served under the soldiers who were arrested. Investigations have also revealed that during the abduction period, the officer currently in remand custody had made telephone calls to the senior-most ranks of the military intelligence unit, and those phone calls had pinched off the communication towers at the locations where Keith Noya was taken to and held against his will. The 5 soldiers were arrested and thereafter placed in remand custody on the charges of abduction, causing serious and minor injuries with the use of a weapon, unlawful detention and inflicting cruel punishments.
It was Gotabaya Rajapaksa who formed operational gangs out of the intelligence units in Colombo and had them engage in acts beyond the provisions of military ops. He held separate meetings with them. We never called in such units for the security of Colombo. There is a retired officer called Kapila Hendri Vitharana. Their gangs were formed with such persons. They were operating externally from the army and engaged in the white van culture, abductions, killing of journalists and other acts.
Activists reason that legal action must be taken disregarding positions and status in a bid to curtail such illegal acts, no matter the circumstance.
This is not an accident. We see some kind of regular pattern of state-sponsored death squads with military background attacking, disappearing, killing journalists. And just 2 days before Lasantha Wickrematunga was killed, Sirasa was attacked with military precision, wearing black, using grenades. And none of these killings, abductions and disappearance has been investigated to a completion. This is the test for the government, how far, how speedy they are going, and without looking at who is behind it, someone must be real big behind these issues, the incidents, and bring the perpetrator to justice.
We believe that the abduction of Keith Noya is one that was done through the intervention of the state in a very organized manner. If these investigations continue, the truth behind the assault on Upali Tennakon and the assassination of Lasantha Wickrematunge could be exposed.
The Free Media Movement says that there are facts to believe that the military officer in remand custody of the abduction of Keith Nair is also involved in the assassination of the late Lasantha Wickrematunge and the assault of Upali Tennakon. Issuing a statement, the movement has requested that just and immediate investigations be carried out on the assault and attacks on journalists as well as media institutions and the perpetrators be brought before the law.
An event to commemorate the late Vijay Kumaratunga took place in Colombo this evening.
The commemoration was organized by the Vijay Kumaratunga Memorial Foundation under the theme The Undying Mark of the Slain Humanitarian. Former President Chandika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga presided over the memorial held at the Bishop's College Auditorium in Colombo. The evening was graced by a distinguished gathering.
At this very moment, there are many who continue to question as to why there is no answer yet to this matter. As an honor to the late Vijay, I request all the state leaders to make use of the rainbow revolution that has dawned upon us. Do not allow the country to fall prey to evil. He was behind bars even when a UMP government was in power. The group led by Vijay Kumaratunga had to urge to solve the ethnic issues of the country. In the end, we all had the question, are we for a political solution or not? The Indo-Lanka agreement was signed and the 13th amendment to the Constitution was made. That was a brave act. At a time when the UMP ministers were afraid, Vijay Kumaratunga stepped into the open. He took a decision and it cost him his life. Though he lost his life, his vision continues.
Vijay Kumaratunga is an icon whose actions will resonate for generations to come. Here's a look at the life of this political and movie personality of Sri Lanka.
Kovilage Anton Vijay Kumaratunga made his debut on the silver screen with his appearance in the movie Hantane Kathawa. Since then, Vijay Kumaratunga graced the silver screen with 114 movies, including Eyadan Lukulamek, Paradige Bambaru Avit, Ganga Addara, Christu Charitya, and Kadapata Kuchaya. Vijay, who won the most awards for Sri Lanka's most popular actor, was also an award-winning singer. After his marriage to Chandika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga and his debut in politics, Vijay underwent many struggles in life. However, he became an icon in Sri Lankan society as someone who worked hard for coexistence among all communities.
Tamil, Sinhala, Otrume, Melalakam.
He brought together many left parties to form the United Socialist Front. On the 16th of February 1988, Vijay Kumaratunga, who was loved by many across the country, was gunned down, never to open his eyes again.
An event titled Peace, Harmony, Stability and Prosperity for All took place in Colombo this morning.
International Mother Language Day, organized by the Bangladesh High Commission to Sri Lanka in association with the Ministry of National Coexistence, Dialogue in Official Languages and the Ministry of Culture, Sri Lanka Scouts as well as the CMC, took place this morning at the Vihara Mahadevi Park. The event was graced by ministers, MPs, diplomats and activists.
Sri Lanka has 3 languages, not 2, 3 languages. Sinhala and Tamil happens to be official languages, while English is our link language. Sri Lanka is a progressive country, progressive nation. We march forward, so we look forward, look back and see where we have made mistakes and correct and march forward. Sri Lanka kaya dirapi, කොතරද වැරද්දගත්ත කියලා ඉතිහාස දිහා අරලා බලලා ඉතිහාස අදාගෙන විසරට යනවා. ඒකයි අපේ ඒකන අපි ආඩම්බර වෙන්න. இலங்கை முறையில் நாங்கள் பின்னால் திரும்பி பார்த்து எங்கே வராடு தவறடித்துக்கின்றோம் என்று பார்த்து அது திருத்திகள் முன்னால் செல்கின்றோம். அதற்கு நாங்கள் இலங்கை முறையில் பெருமை அடைகின்றோம். Sri Lankan future lies in the diverse nature of Sri Lanka.
Languages are the most powerful instruments of preserving and developing our tangible and intangible heritage. Almost to promote the dissemination of mother tongue will serve not only to encourage linguistic diversity and multilingual education, but also to develop fuller awareness of linguistic and cultural traditions throughout the world, and to inspire solidarity based on understanding, tolerance and dialogue. We believe in creating a trilingual society together with peace and harmony. Hence the implementation of the official language policy is so important, and the government is heavily committed in this regard.
The invitees also took to brush and paint to place their mark to celebrate International Mother Language Day. A campaign also took place in line with the event.
The death toll from the tragic boat accident that took place in the seas of Katukurunda recently has risen to 12. 6 survivors continue to receive treatment in hospital.
This tragedy took place in the seas of Katukurunda, roughly 2 nautical miles away from the Berwala Fisheries Harbour on Sunday morning. Persons aboard vessels in close proximity made a valiant effort to save those from the sinking vessel. The boat turned over right before our eyes. It swayed to one side and then the other. It toppled over afterwards. Those in the boat clinged on to the gunwale trim of the boat, but it didn't help. I managed to only rescue 4 persons. I tried my best to save them. In total, only around 15 to 20 persons were rescued. We were not wearing life jackets when we jumped in. We gave it to those who were drowning. We did not think about our lives. The boat came near ours. That is why we were able to save many. 4 persons continue to remain missing. This child who was rescued is only 1.5 years old. Her mother and father are still missing. They were residents from Nallahena in Beruwala.
I told my sisters to come into our boat, but they got late and boarded the other boat. It turned over right in front of us. There was a considerable number aboard that boat. I did not see my sister there. The child was held by her husband. The child survived because of her diaper. The grandmother is in the ICU. The mother and father are both missing.
Whenever a vessel leaves port, a departure log must be included and the departure form must be submitted. That form must be handed over to the Coast Guard or the Sri Lanka Navy. We have imposed such rules and regulations. Every registered vessel must fill the departure form before leaving. When a vessel reaches port, we also accept an arrival form. The vessels that left Beruwala did not obtain permission from us before leaving port. This situation has arisen as this event was termed as an annual cultural event. These vessels are made in a certain way to face the seas. There is a certain weight limit as well. This vessel toppled because of the weight of the passengers. We request the public to refrain from getting onto such vessels as they are not passenger transport vessels. There are separate vessels for passenger transport. If required, we will grant permission to travel in passenger transport vessels whilst wearing life jackets.
Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers decided today to compensate the families of the victims who died and were injured in the Beruwala boat accident.
I submitted a cabinet paper at today's cabinet meeting and got the approval to pay a sum of 100,000 rupees for the family of each victim and a sum of 20,000 for the injured. We will start issuing the compensation tomorrow.
The Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy makes a request to switch off unnecessary lights between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. Owing to the prevalent dry weather condition, the country's hydropower generation has been limited to just 8%.
The water levels of the main reservoirs through which hydropower is generated is currently at 32.2%. This has caused thermal power plants to generate nearly 92% of the energy demand. The Ceylon Electricity Board points out that due to this situation, the current water levels will only be sufficient to generate power for a period of 1.5 months. If the situation continues, it will be the worst drought to affect us in 40 years. We did our calculations and showed the government that there is no need of disrupting electricity. However, if we do not experience rains until the end of June, we inform what steps need to be taken to have a continuous flow of electricity for 24 hours. If calculated, the government will have to bear a cost of 51 billion for this process. We undertook an emergency supply of electricity of 60 megawatts. It is through this that we are maintaining a balance in the supply of electricity. Around 485,000 street lights are switched off an hour earlier. We are ready to take the challenge of providing a continuous supply of electricity. However, you need to understand the situation to not get a wrong picture of what we are doing. We are undertaking this procedure owing to a disaster which we are about to face. What is disappointing is that when the entire world is in the midst of an operation to move away from the coal-powered era and are entering into an era of renewable energy, why are certain experts in Sri Lanka continuing to chant verses to the tunes of coal power? This is not the government's policy. The country has to fall onto the right track again. This coal power plant mafia is definitely working together with the petroleum mafia, which is why they are suddenly trying to put up oil tanks. This void should be filled with renewable energy. These enemies who are collaborating with the oil mafia should be exposed. At a time when the country is facing a drought, a massive wastage of water was reported from the Veligalla area in Mavanalla. This water line, which supplies water to around 50 families in the area, was damaged at around 7 last night.
In more local news, the second global consultation on migrant health, resetting the agenda, got underway in Colombo this morning.
The event is jointly organized by the International Organization for Migration, the World Health Organization and the Government of Sri Lanka to provide member states a platform for multi-sectoral dialogue and political commitment to enhance the health of migrants. The inauguration for the dialogue was graced by Health Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne and was attended by several foreign delegates, including the Deputy Minister of Health and Childcare of Zimbabwe, Aldrin Muziva.
Migration has influenced most nations at some point of time. Our social development, cultural beliefs, education, even judicial systems, economic development are much influenced as a result of mobility and migrants of various types. Sri Lanka being no exception. Identifying who is vulnerable is important in this context. It is time for us to examine vulnerable populations in our countries, and I believe migrants are most likely to be included as vulnerable. The government of Sri Lanka feels that the dialogue on health of migrants needs heightened emphasis, global, and this led His Excellency the President Maithripala Sirisena to invite for a second global consultation we are witnessing today.
Minister of Housing and Construction Sajid Premadasa convened a media briefing today.
A house worth 4.5 million was presented to Sri Lankan under-19 cricketer Nipun Ranseka, who performed exceptionally well during the tours of England and South Africa. The house is located in the Sairapura area in Angulana. Nipun Ranseka, a student of PDS Kularatna Vidyalaya in Ambalangoda, is currently residing in a house which is partly built in a coconut estate in Ambalangoda. His current residence will be fully constructed by the National Housing Development Authority. We are ready to do all we can from our end. We will help to uplift this child's living standards and aid him in his career in the field of cricket.
Well, on that note, we wrap up Primetime News for tonight. I'm Krishan Devasagayam.
And I'm Nicola D'Souza. Take care and good night.